Let's go live now to the Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Patterson and Liberal MP Julian Leeser calling on the government to guarantee Hamas supporters won't be let into Australia.
With my friend and colleague Julian Leeser, who's taken the important initiative of arranging a letter to Tony Burke today to call on him to do his job and put the national interest before his political interest and ensure that no supporters of the listed terrorist organisation Hamas or any other terrorist organisation come to Australia. We were both very alarmed by the revelations over the weekend that the Albanese government's approach to these issues is that if you're simply a rhetorical or political supporter of a terrorist organisation, that is not a barrier for you coming to our country. There are two things that need to happen immediately. Every single application from the Palestinian territories to come to Australia should be referred to ASIO for assessment. It was remarkable that Mike Burgess said on the weekend that was not happening. And secondly, the department needs to be directed to not approve the visa of any person who can be identified to be as a supporter of a terrorist organisation. If you think violence is an appropriate means to achieve your political objectives, then you're a supporter of a terrorist organisation, and these organisations are listed in our country for very good reason. Julian.
Well, thank you, James, and thank you for the work that you're doing to keep Australia safe. Unfortunately, the security situation in Australia today is declining. We've seen the threat level increase in recent days. We have a terrorism listing regime in Australia to discourage people from associating with terrorist organisations or supporting terrorist organisations. We list organisations like Al-Qaeda, like Islamic State, like Hamas and Hezbollah. And it was disturbing at the weekend to hear the Director-General of Security state the government position, which was that the mere rhetorical support for a terrorist organisation was not enough to have a visa cancelled. We're seeing this at a time when countries like Germany, a like-minded country to Australia, is expelling Hamas supporters. So today, myself with 70 colleagues have written to the Minister for Home Affairs, Tony Burke. We've asked him to do two things: to direct his department to ensure that supporters of terrorist organisations like Hamas are not granted visas to come to this country, and secondly, that they consider the cancellation of any existing visas of people who are currently in this country who are terrorism supporters. Even having one additional terrorism supporter in this country makes our country less safe. So we call on Tony Burke to take action and to demonstrate to the country that he's serious about his job.
It sounds hackneyed, but the old phrase, one man's terrorism, another man's freedom fighter. Where exactly do you draw the line on one is a terrorist supporter and then someone who might support the aims and objectives of Hamas? Questions like Palestinian and things like that.
But people may well say that, Andrew, but the law in Australia is very clear. We list terrorist organisations. We have objective criteria for how we assess whether an organisation is a terrorist organisation, and it relates to an organisation that has a political objective and it seeks violence to achieve those political objectives. So if you're a supporter of any of those listed terrorist organisations, you are potentially running afoul of the law, and we don't think you're someone who should come to our country. That is very different for someone who is a completely peaceful supporter of the cause of Palestinian self-determination. That is an absolutely respectable cause. People in Australia are entitled to peacefully campaign for that cause. We have no issue with that. What we have an issue with is people who support violent means to achieve that objectives. If you support the 7th of October and what happened on that day, if you support Hamas, then you should not be welcome in Australia.
You said that Mike Burgess was giving the government's position. Was he not giving his kind of independent view as the head of ASIO on what the standards should be on who gets allowed in?
No, it's not a matter for Mike Burgess to set immigration policy in Australia. He wouldn't seek that role for himself. He's very careful about what he does, and I listened to him carefully, as we all should. He was very clearly describing the status quo under the Albanese government, which consists of two things. One, there is no problem for having rhetorical supporters of terrorist organisations come to this country. ASIO has not been asked to look for that. And two, that they will only refer some applications for visas from the Palestinian territories for ASIO for a security assessment. I cannot understand why that would be the case. Let's remember, this is a war zone governed by a terrorist organisation. There are opinion polls in Gaza which show that support for Hamas is anywhere between 40% and 70%. There are opinion polls which show the majority of residents of Gaza support what happened on the 7th of October. This is a cohort that should be screened carefully to make sure that there's no risk to our safety and security.
What was constituted support, like in a tweet, for example, about
I've great confidence in the capabilities of our intelligence agencies to assess that. Anyone who expresses support for terrorism or terrorist organisations should qualify.
Senator Patterson, could I ask your view on whether you think it's unusual or surprising that so many people released from immigration detention into the community and issued with visas after the fact?
Yes, extraordinary on two levels. One, why on earth was the Albanese government releasing those 83 people without any valid visa? And second, why did Andrew Giles tell the Parliament that they were issued visas? Why did he say that they were in the community on bridging visas with strict conditions? We know that is not the case. It seems like a textbook case of having misled the Parliament, and there should be consequences for that under the Prime Minister's own ministerial code of conduct. It doesn't matter that he's in a different portfolio. If he's misled the Parliament, he should be sacked. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.